7. Cityscape Challenge. According to communication intercepts, Ratash Osis is leading a force somewhere to the south, but he apparently has our measure, and he's been handed an ultimatum. Keith Andrew intercepted this and passed it along.
These Freebirds may get to Durgan City, Galaxy Commander, but they will die there. I promise. They will die there, Ratash Osis, or I will have you in a circle of equals. Contain them. Destroy them, or I will see your blood heritage dishonored and your DNA removed from our breeding cycles. Is that clear? Galaxy Commander. Sir. Galaxy Commander Corbett?
Count on Osis to dog our tracks all the way in, Lieutenant. If you want to avoid him, I recommend fast action. Durgan City was not large. Hardly more than a good-sized town, really. Certainly, Connor decided no replacement for Lutera back on Huntress. But here on Tranquil, it was what the Smoke Jaguars had to work with as a new capital. Hastily erected prefab barracks built to house the expected influx of warriors as the clan continued to regroup on Tranquil, doubled the number of buildings. Warehouses had been converted to crude mech bays, and everywhere the various clan castes worked to improve what they could. When the Damocles Commando struck, they noticed at once the strains on Durgan. Administrative and logistics functions demanded by the military had so overburdened local resources that clear lines of communication no longer existed. Having the top two commanders currently absent from the city only compounded the problem. The number of junior warriors looking for direction were matched only by ambitious seniors ready to claim the mantle of leadership. A cacophony of conflicting reports and orders bombarded the airwaves. They quickly escalated to the point where Connor ordered Corporal Sorensen to filter out all but the most critical intercepted communications. The commando escorted forward their trio of field bases, heading into the city's southwest edge. Behind them, they left a pair of smashed vultures, whose pilots had thought themselves up to the task of taking on 280 tons combined weight in battle mechs. Further back, an Annihilator and a Puma were little more than burning hulks. Dominic's Thor limped along with a ruined leg actuator, but so far, his was the only major damage. In the cockpit of his salvaged Mad Cat, Connor felt the tremors of light autocannon fire slamming into the shoulders of his Omni-Mech. His scanner screamed new warnings a split second later, then painted a set of threat icons over his heads-up display. A trio of Bulldog armored vehicles patrolling the outskirts of Durgan. He measured the delay in time against the necessity of clearing the field behind them. Alan, you and Dominic deal with the tanks, then circle around to meet us on the north side of Durgan. Epona, with me. Splitting their forces was a calculated risk, but time was beginning to weigh against them. With Corbett and Osis away, the defense of Durgan was lighter than it should be. Patrols were being called in, however, and he had no intention of being here when they arrived. The commando mechs speared into the city proper. Upon a Shadowcat paced along at Connor's best speed of 85 kph. They were after Galaxy Commander Corbett's command and control building, located in the southwest reaches of Durgan. Though the Smoke Jaguars possessed a well-fortified base outside the city, the cramped conditions had forced several critical components to be relocated to an auxiliary site. It was a target they couldn't pass up, and in easy reach along their path to the spaceport. At the second intersection, his HUD painted a Puma off to his right. Quickly lost as he passed by and was again shielded by buildings, but 300 meters range was too close. At the next intersection, he turned left and then back to the right. 2 more intersections straight through, and the Mad Cat's computer identified a building at the end of his block as his target. The Puma might have paced them to the north, but it wasn't about to catch the 2 mech warriors before they hammered Corbett's command facility to rubble. He nodded his satisfaction. A sense of contentment which quickly faded as an Annihilator stepped into the next intersection, its torso already twisted about to give it a line of sight down the street on which he approached. Behind it, just out of the intersection, his computers tagged an avatar waiting to follow in the larger mech's shadow. It would have to wait its turn. 4 autocannons suddenly filled the street with fragmenting 80mm rounds. The deadly storm sanded armor away from the Mad Cat's every surface. Several rounds rang off the cockpit, throwing a violent shake to the entire mech and threatening to unbalance it. Past the intersection and too late to dodge away, Connor quickly thought to his lancemate's survival.
"Break right, Epona!"
Still fighting for control, he noted with an instant's relief the Shadow Cat's icon splitting away from his own target on the HUD. It headed north toward the rendezvous with Alan and Dominic, out of immediate danger. The Mad Cat ran forward, directly into the Annihilator's embrace. Having faced up such a monstrous battle mech a few times already, the Annihilator no longer held any special terror for him, except in what it could do to his Mad Cat if given a chance. The 75-ton Omni could not withstand such abuse for long, but with Epona safely away, he was determined to not give the assault mech a second chance to finish him. Framed on both sides by tall buildings, cut off ahead and not about to slow down for a turn back to the rear, he braced himself as he continued forward in a race against the cycling time of the Annihilator's weapons. The lethal autocannon thrust forward again in anticipation of a new barrage. Connor turned his Mad Cat into a large building on his right. Hands tight on the control stick and throttle, he powered his way into the wall. The mech bucked hard, shaking him violently against the restraining harness, and almost rebounded into the street where the Annihilator would certainly have destroyed it. Slowly, it seemed, the Mad Cat chewed its way inward, smashing through 2 stories of floors, walls, desks, computer consoles, and communication stations. Crushed brick, plaster, and tile rained a cloud of debris around the canopy, fogging his view. Once far enough inside, he worked his way left again, guessing, but trusting his natural instincts. In an avalanche of brick and glass bursting out from shattered windows, the Mad Cat tore its way from the structure and regained the street around the corner from its original path. Behind him, the building began a slow and ungainly collapse, unable to stand up under the damage to its foundation and lower floors. Wrenching his targeting crosshairs into the right side of his main screen, he twisted the Mad Cat at the waist to drop the reticule over the backside of the Avatar. The 70-ton mech was just now stepping into the intersection that the Annihilator had vacated. As the building collapsed, the assault mech became mired in a pile of rubble and the Avatar pulled up short. Sensors no doubt screaming the danger of an enemy Mad Cat at his rear. The Avatar began to turn. Not fast enough. Connor cut loose with everything his Mad Cat had to give, except for long-ranged missiles. Not about to waste ammunition or run up his heat on such a chancy close-up shot. His large lasers cut across the Avatar's back and the rear left leg. A trio of medium-range lasers scored out with gem-bright pulses, adding to the damage, and even his machine guns, generally used as anti-infantry weapons, scratched into the other mech. The Avatar's thermal image flared red, and then white-hot as engine shielding was cut away. But the other warrior was faster than most on the reactor's emergency shutdown fields, preventing a catastrophic explosion. The Avatar stood where it had been, blocking the intersection and belching smoke out terrible rents in its back. Connor's first thought was for his escape. The Annihilator fought to extract itself from the collapsed building, and after such a close call, it seemed the perfect time. His second thought was for the mission, and he turned to locate the command center for at least one good barrage before fleeing. Then, with a short bark of relieved laughter, he turned his Mad Cat northward and throttled up into a fast run. Results were what counted, regardless if it hadn't been planned this way. Truthfully, he hadn't paid attention at the time to which building he was running through. It still came down to a race, however, as the Annihilator fought for freedom and to take up the chase. Pushing his Mad Cat's throttle to its limit stop, running for the northern edge of the city, Connor checked up on the status of his commando and on the rallying Jaguar forces.
All forces, this is Star Captain Dana Wimmer.
Connor listened to the intercepted comms Sorensen routed him. One senior warrior had finally won out for dominance.
Enemy is moving north. Regroup at the canyon. Stop them.
A narrow bluff separated Durgan City from the plains area on which the spaceport was situated. A jumping battlemech might have cleared the steep cliff face and walked down the far side, but not the mobile field bases. Even so close to escape, the commando was not about to abandon their critical vehicles. Too many things could still go wrong. Too many things already had. Recon probe data, originally meant for Commandos 4 through 6, and provided by the Eclipse, had located a short canyon splitting the bluff. It also showed a wall with fortified gates warding the far end of the narrow pass. Sorensen arranged with Keith Andrew to provide artillery support, his catapult equipped with Arrow 4 assault missile launchers. Opponent's Shadowcat was modified to carry a tag spotting laser, which would direct the artillery strike against the wall and blow open the gates. A simple plan, as the best ones usually are. He gripped his control sticks tighter.
Who was it that said no plan survives contact with the enemy?
Autocannon turrets protected the pass along its entire length, slowing the commando to a crawl. An Avatar had also been stationed in the way, but by the time Connor reached the site, one field base had deployed a crane arm to raise the mech's blasted hulk to a carrying trailer. The Avatar's leg looked to have been crushed by giant hammer blows, a testament to the Gauss rifle Alan Matilla's Sunder wielded. Alan was already several hundred meters into the canyon, his Sunder's armor protecting him while he methodically scrapped each turret along the way. Dominic's Thor and Epona's Cat protected the field-based vehicles.
Keith Andrew ran into trouble with an enemy patrol, Sorensen informed him at once. He's trying to get in the clear to launch an Arrow 4 strike, but it'll take time.
I can launch, soon as you're ready, Keith interrupted on the commando's common channel. The transmission did not rob his voice of the tense determination. Just say the word. Connor shook his head.
Keith, you get clear of any smoke Jaguars first. They'll see the missile launch and trace it back.
He stepped his Mad Cat up to the head of the pass, facing it back toward the city. The field base finished its work and began to roll forward, into the relative safety of the canyon.
Dominic, back up Alan, he ordered.
Though the assault mech pilot had yet to say so, and wouldn't until seriously injured, Connor knew the autocannon had to be exacting a toll against Alan's Sunder by now.
Epona, with the MFBs.
Then his commando safely into the canyon, Connor backed up the Mad Cat to block the entrance. Almost at once, an enemy Puma raced up from behind, likely hoping to catch one of the field bases or a smaller commando mech by the backside. Instead, it found his Mad Cat holding the defile entrance. Recovering quickly from any surprise, twin PPC strikes arced out and slammed into the Mad Cat's side. Molten armor runneled to the ground as large sections sloughed away, bearing the right arm to its titanium skeleton and leaving a red-tinged scar angling from shoulder down to hip. The 75-ton mech rocked back, but righted itself under his touch. The Puma spun around in a tight turn, ready to race back to the safety of the city. He was not about to let it off so easily. His heavy missile launchers speared out a full flight of 40 missiles, raining destruction over the Puma's upper torso. The mech staggered, but did not go down. Following it up with the large lasers carried in each arm, both ruby-red beams stabbed into the Puma's left leg. The intensely concentrated fire demanded more than the Puma had to give, slicing through just below the hip and amputating the leg. The 35-ton Omni plunged forward head first from its 90 km/h sprint, tearing itself apart against the ground as it rolled into and through a nearby warehouse. No time for congratulatory thoughts. On his HUD, the Annihilator and a second Puma maneuvered into the outskirts of the city directly facing the defile. The assault mech had finally cleared itself from the collapsed building and come looking for the commando, picking up some support along the way. Connor dropped crosshairs over the assault machine and squeezed off a pair of ruby lasers.
"Things are heating up back here,"
he transmitted. The literal truth, actually, as his fusion reactor spiked from the power demands of his weapons. Waste heat bled into his cockpit, and he gasped for breath.
"Tell me you're to the gates."
"Working on it,"
Alan Matilla answered him. Working on it? A probing attack by the Annihilator walked autocannon fire across the canyon wall to his right. Stone chips and ricochets pinged off the Omnimech's chest. Connor throttled into a backward walk, moving his Madcat further into the canyon's protection.
"Work a little faster, will you?"
"We're trying," Sorensen cut in. "The wall has PPC turrets arranged for a savage crossfire, and they're backing up an Annihilator." Another Annihilator. This one playing Horatio at the bridge. Time was slipping out from beneath the Damocles Commando like quicksand.
"Alan, can you handle it with Dominic?"
"If it has to be now, yes."
Frustration was evident in the mech warrior's voice.
"But it will hurt. The Annihilator ripped a large hole into the leg of my Sunder that Sorensen wants to patch up before it costs me an actuator."
"We pulled back and the Annihilator isn't pursuing," the corporal added. Of course not. Its job was to hold the pass until city defenders could rally to the canyon. Selecting for his large lasers only, he channeled a long-range shot at the Puma, which had run out to fire its PPCs. Both beams flew wide of their mark, and low, scoring instead a marked ground couch which exploded into an orange fireball. If nothing else, it hurried the Puma's pilot, his own shots also missing though coming closer than Connor had. The man-made lightning scarred the ground 10 meters in front of the Mad Cat. "Do we have 10 minutes? Sorensen asked, able to pull Connor's sensor feed and no doubt aware of the enemy mechs pressing from behind. To the corporal's credit, he didn't worry the rest of the lance with details. That decision was left to the commando leader. Now, an Owens had moved up into the Annihilator's shadow. The 100-ton assault mech waded through a single-story warehouse and was briefly lost from sight behind a parking garage.
"I don't think so,"
Connor admitted, the heat now drawing a river of sweat which stung his eyes and left a salty taste on his lips. He arced another flight of missiles toward the Annihilator's position, just to give the Jaguar warrior something to think about before it broke cover, then wheeled around to pace deeper into the canyon.
I'm moving up to rejoin. Sorensen, get the Sunder fixed. We'll need it on the other side of those gates.
There would be room for 2 mechs to fight abreast in the canyon. Between his Mad Cat and Dominic's Thor, they could hope to bring down the Annihilator and both PPC turrets without losing a mech. Chances are, one of them would be risking an ejection. Such tight quarters favored the assault mech too much.
Launching, a voice whispered into his ear, soft but steadfast in its determination. First missile away. Second missile away.
No!
Too late, he still tried to countermand Keith's missile launch. The mech warrior had been monitoring communications, knowing the commando to be in trouble. He was trying to give them an edge, putting artillery-grade missiles into the air, which Epona might call down in a massive strike. Throttling into a run, coming upon and passing the spot where Sorensen's mobile field bases tended the wounded Sunder, Connor was just in time to see both Epona and Dominic move forward into the wider stretch of canyon held by the turrets and Annihilator. Already the blue-white glares flashed in the deeper shadows of the canyon as the turrets speared out their lethal energies. The Mad Cat moved around a final outcropping of rock to witness Dominic's Thor taking a full barrage of the assault mech's autocannon. With Dominic in his line of fire, and Epona crowding his right as she turned her lasers against the PPC turrets crowding the wall, there was little he could do but watch the Annihilator's 4 autocannon tear into the Thor. The depleted uranium rounds hammered into an already savaged right side, smashing Dominic's large laser and leaving the right arm hanging from the shoulder by a ruined tangle of myomere musculature. Fragmenting rounds sanded away armor, scoured deep into the Thor's torso. Thick, dark smoke roiled out the ruined right side chest. And Connor winced, anticipating the explosion that would render the 70-ton Thor down into scrap metal and ruined equipment. The explosion threw a cloud of gray dust over all 4 battle mechs. Not from the destruction of Dominic's Thor, however. The huge gates barring the pass fell under a gout of fire which ate into their ferrocrete walls, raining out shards of poured stone, and then a blanket of debris which blinded natural vision. The thunderclap explosion almost drowned out Epona's "First missile's down." The Arrow 4 missile which Keith Andrew launched had demolished the gate and part of the wall with it. Heavy particles fell to earth quickly, leaving only a light haze to cover the area. By some miracle, Dominic's Thor was still standing. The right side was cored, showing several holes penetrating front to back when the smoke cleared. Reactor shielding had obviously been damaged, but not to the point where the power plant was in danger of immediate explosion. And though his right arm was all but severed, Dominic still retained possession of his most lethal weapon, the same 12-centimeter autocannon Connor had put to such good use. The rapid-fire weapon spat out a blizzard of hard-hitting slugs, raking intense fire over the Annihilator's chest and left leg. To add insult to such grievous injury, the Thor's SRM system hammered in with 5 of 6 missiles, scattering more damage over chest and arms and even slamming one into the head near the cockpit. The assault mech stumbled up against one of the canyon walls, catching itself from falling, but clearing the Thor by just enough for Connor to bring his own weapons into play. Ruby bright lasers cut into the other mech's side and down into a leg, already torn apart by Dominic's furious assault. One beam stabbed in past shreds of armor, worrying the titanium skeleton and cutting free an actuator. The Annihilator toppled this time, gyro and pilot's efforts not enough to stand up under the combined assault of commando mechs. ponderously slow it seemed. The 12-meter-tall machine crashed down to the ground, where it immediately struggled to right itself. Then, Epona stepped in and focused her Shadowcat spotting laser onto the Annihilator's broad back. Like a divine strike of retribution, Keith's second Arrow 4 missile hammered down into the assault mech. And it was simply no more. The force of the exploding Annihilator drove everyone back several paces. The Thor's arm finally gave way, some razor-sharp shrapnel slicing through the last of its Myomer arm muscles. The limb crashed to the ground to lay among the litter of the ravaged assault mech. Alan Sunder, still walking on a partially ruined right leg, walked in just as the 3 commando mechs were starting to pull back from the ruin which had been the Annihilator.
Man, talk about your big guns.
Epona echoed his sentiment, though in more direct appreciation. Thanks for the assist, Keith. It made the difference. Pause. Keith? Keith Andrew. Her only response came from an intercepted clan transmission, riding in on a burst of static.
They're through the gates. Striker Star, defend the North Pass. Gamma Auxiliaries, hold your line at the spaceport. Any warrior who falls without taking a Stravig enemy with you will never pilot a mech again.
Connor ignored Star Captain Wimmer.
Keith Andrew, respond, please.
He's gone silent, Lieutenant. Sorensen, pulling forward the trio of MFBs. The sideband clan channels I'm monitoring report that he broke past one picket line, but they're after him, chasing north. Let's hope he can make rendezvous with Eclipse's company, because for helping us, he's now out of reach of the spaceport.
Yeah, well, he might as well be too.
We might as well be too, Alan said, sullen and shocked at the same time. He pivoted his Sunder to stare northeast.
All this wave for nothing.
3 other mechs swung around to stare after the Sunder's gaze. Seen above the lip of the canyon, what looked like a large spheroid-shaped skyscraper rocketed skyward on a tongue of argent-white flame. It rose slowly at first, quickly gaining speed even as it gained more altitude, until it looked like an early star in the pale blue sky. The sight of a dropship, rocketing for orbit.